All right, so looking pretty good here, right? We got our template open. We're in Illustrator. HSP sliders are going, and yeah, it looks good. So first thing we're going to do is, I don't know, let's try a tetrad. Seems good. And that's pretty much where we need to start. Now, tetrad's pretty simple. You need to have two sets of complementary hues. That's one way to look at it. If we plot it on a color wheel, two sets of complementary hues are going to give us a rectangle or a square, depending on how you do it. So let's just start with red. And now we know that the complement of red, of course, is 180 because it's 180 degrees away from it. And I'm going to stick that right there. Although, you know, just for convenience sake, let's stick it right there. And then, I don't know, let's say our next one is 60. So our next color would be 60. And then the complement of 60 is 240. So these are going to be our hues that we start with. Now we know that we need to have a good range, a broad range of saturation, value, and hue. So hue is already taken care of. So now we need to work on saturation and value. Now if we look at our depth assignment from a couple weeks ago, we know that some of the cool colors, maybe those are the ones that we want to have darker and duller, and maybe the warm colors are the ones that we want to have lighter and brighter. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to start with that blue here. And I'm going to go with tones of blue. Let's see what this looks like. Not hugely different. So maybe we're going to go there. Maybe we'll try that. And maybe even a little darker on that one. And at least at first, you're just going to be eyeballing it. Like there's no real science to this. We do want this to be, you know, I don't want this to be totally black. So maybe that looks a little too dark. Maybe there. So it's got just a little bit of a hue to it. Now this yellow here, we said we want maybe the yellow to be brighter and lighter. So we'll start with that pure yellow that we've got there. And you know, I'm gonna go with a little bit lighter. Now you can't really do too much with yellow though, because if you get, you know, too much towards white, it ends up just looking white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try sticking a tone in there too. Now it's not going to look pretty. I don't think a tetrad is going to look pretty if it's going to be functional. So you know, we'll just sort of wing it and see what it looks like. Now cyan, that's a really cool color, so let's try going dark and dull on that one too, like maybe in there. Okay, maybe there. So that looks pretty good. You know, it goes dark and dull, sure. Now red, that's going to be an interesting one, because if red starts off too bright, or if it goes too light, it ends up getting dull. So I don't know, maybe we just kind of play with it and try throwing in a couple different colors. And then maybe we go with a tone of red. Something like that. Okay, so to me, that looks pretty good. We can select it. We can go up to Object, or sorry, Edit. Where are you? Edit Colors, and Convert to Grayscale. Let me look at that. Okay, so when I'm looking at this, do I see that we have good low-key values? Yeah, I'd say so, definitely. There's 5, maybe even 6 there that look distinctly low-key. Do we have good intermediate values? Yeah, there's like 5 right in there. And do we have good high-key values? Yeah, sure. That one's a little intermediate, but I see some high-key values there as well. So that looks pretty good. Now, I would say, you know, looking at that, I would call that done. Now, it isn't the most pretty selection of colors, but it's going to be functional. We have really bright hues over here. We have really dull hues over here. We have light, we have dark, so that gives us good range. Okay, so once that tetrad is done, we can come in and start doing our dissonant palette. Sorry about the little glitch there, but yeah, dissonant, next thing, we get that labeled and start working on that. Now, key to dissonance is you want your S and B sliders to be at 100. Some people, they'll read about dissonance and it'll sound just like random colors, but it's not just random colors. It's colors that are inherently going to clash, and part of that is having full saturation. If you start adding gray to the mix, that grayness will actually help link a lot of the colors. Like even if, I don't know, let's just look over here for example. Like if you've got this cyan here and this red here, even though those are complementary and they should vibrate when they're put next to each other, especially if you use these two here, but with these two colors here, because the values are similar and because the saturation is similar, they're not going to clash nearly as much as the fully bright ones there. So, first step in creating a dissonant palette is just put your S and B sliders at 100 and never touching them again. And then from there you can start moving around the wheel. I like 240. I'm going to say 300 or about 300. I want to see a 330 in there too. I like 330. That tends to clash with green pretty nicely. You can create some pretty insane visual vibration with that one there. And then of course we need red. And I'm just randomly placing those in here. I don't want it to look like a rainbow, even though it can very easily look like a rainbow. Right around hue 20 is a nice orange. We can go with sort of a yellow-orange around 35 to 40. So you see these three colors here are similar, even possibly most of these feel like they might be analogous, but once we start designing with them, we're going to have a lot of colors that are really not going to like sitting next to each other. It's going to hurt. And I'm just moving around. I like that sea green there. Like if you put that and this violet next to each other, you can get some pretty good vibration off of that. These two are complementary, so those will work too. Go with the cyan, maybe a little red around hue 200 as well. 215. Okay, so it's looking pretty good, right? But I'm missing 3. So I'm going to say I don't see any violet. I don't, let's see, green looks pretty good, orange, red. Okay, so the one exception to that S and B slider at 100 rule would be black. And I think everybody could use black just once. It sometimes does a very nice job of breaking apart some of the colors. You have to use it sparingly, but it can be used. And then I keep thinking I want something else in that green, but we got it covered. Blue, green, yellow, green, and sort of a true green. So maybe let's look at that cyan, see if maybe we need a little bit in the blue range. No, let's go back over to warm. I'm not seeing a lot right in there. So maybe that color there. It's sort of in between here and here. So this palette here now looks pretty good. I think you're okay with this. And the reason that you would be okay with a palette similar to this is you have colors from all over the color wheel, and you've got 16 different colors you're working with, and with the exception of black, they're all fully saturated. SMD sliders are at 100. So when you start putting any of these colors next to each other that aren't analogous or adjacent on the color wheel, they're going to shake. This violet and this magenta here, those are actually going to create a sense of vibration, even though they're somewhat similar, but because they're so bright, they're going to shake. And then once you're done with that, you can head over to palette number 3 and do whichever of the color schemes that you want to do. And while you're looking at them, with the first and the third one, always keep an eye on value. Look at that, in grayscale, and you'll be able to see exactly what's going on, right? You can even look at your dissonant palette in grayscale if you want. Like, why not? You're not controlling the S and B sliders, so it seems like maybe there wouldn't be a good range of value. But look at that. I mean, that's excellent, right? That gives you everything you need in terms of value to design with. So on the third one, do the same thing as you did with the tetrad, except obviously the hues are going to be different. And then check it in grayscale. Make sure you have a really broad range of value and saturation to design with. And then go back to color relativity and depth and look at how those apply to your color selection. So, all right, if you do have any questions, though, please let me know.